This is The Quiet End, and tonight I'll tell you a story titled Chimes at Dusk. Let's begin. Clara Myers stepped off the rusted ferry and into the murky embrace of Gray Harbor, her boots crunching on damp gravel. The air hung heavy with the scent of salt and decay, as though the sea itself were exhaling secrets it dared not keep. The town sprawled before her, a patchwork of leaning houses and sagging roofs, their silhouettes fractured against the waning amber sky. Clara tightened her coat and adjusted her camera strap. She had heard whispers, stories of men and women vanishing without so much as a ripple, their names erased from dinner tables and church pews. The assignment was simple: expose the truth, unravel the local legend. But as she ventured deeper into the labyrinth of narrow streets, an unease settled in her chest like a stone dropped into still water. That evening, as the sun surrendered to the horizon, something changed. A sound, haunting and hollow, reverberated through the town. A chime. It was neither the comforting toll of a church bell nor the industrial clang of a buoy. It was deeper, older, resonating from a place far beneath the waves. Heads turned toward the sound as though pulled by invisible strings. Clara stood frozen, gripping the camera as her eyes followed the townsfolk. One by one, they drifted toward the shoreline, their faces slack, eyes empty of recognition. They waded into the water without hesitation, the frigid sea swallowing them inch by inch. No screams, no struggle. They simply disappeared beneath the surface. By morning, the town was quieter than death itself. Homes were deserted, doors left ajar, meals abandoned mid-preparation. Clara's knocking went unanswered, her voice echoing back from empty rooms. The eerie stillness clawed at her resolve. Whatever truth she sought in Gray Harbor, it lurked beyond comprehension. And the chime, it had not sounded again, but Clara knew it would. Clara spent the day wandering Gray Harbor, searching for answers among its dwindling population. Those who remained were shadows of themselves, their voices barely above whispers. They spoke of the chime as though it were alive, eternal, and unyielding, older than the town itself, as if it had been woven into the fabric of the sea and stone. One man, his face pale and lined with sleepless nights, clutched his ears as he described the sound. "It doesn't ask," he murmured, his voice trembling. "It commands. You feel it in your teeth, in your bones. It pulls, but you don't fight. You can't." He refused to say more, retreating behind the warped door of his home. Near dusk, Clara met an elderly woman seated on a weathered bench by the docks. Her eyes were milky with cataracts, yet they bore an unsettling clarity, as though she could see truths beyond the veil of sight. "You should leave," the woman rasped, her voice cracking like dry parchment. "Before it calls you too. We are cursed here. The drowned are waiting, and so are we." Clara pressed her for details, but the woman merely turned her face to the sea, her lips trembling with silent prayers. That night, as Clara lay awake in her rented room, the chime returned. It was not a sound, not in the traditional sense. It was a vibration, a resonance that filled the air and seeped through the walls. It was inside her, vibrating in her ribs, her skull. She felt it, impossibly, in her very blood. And with it came a longing, a deep, irrational desire to step outside, to walk toward the water. Her breath quickened as she fought the compulsion, her nails digging into the mattress. But the longing didn't fade. It lingered, a lingering whisper at the edge of reason. The chime was no mere sound. It was a summons. Clara stood at the edge of the cliff, her camera poised, its lens focused on the shoreline below. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that crawled across the skin rather than danced in the lungs. She had come here armed with resolve, determined to capture whatever truth lurked beneath the waves. As dusk descended, the chime began, deep and resonant, as though the sea itself were groaning under some unseen weight. Clara tightened her grip on the camera, her breath hitching as shadowy forms rose from the water. They were humanoid, but only in passing resemblance. Their skin was encrusted with barnacles, their movements slow, deliberate, like creatures unaccustomed to air. Their eyes glowed faintly, twin points of unearthly light that pierced the gloom. It was no random emergence. The figures were working, passing enormous stones to one another beneath the waves, their gestures methodical. Clara squinted, adjusting the camera's zoom. They were constructing something, an immense structure obscured by the ocean's surface, its purpose unknowable. Her journalistic instincts burned, compelling her to document every moment. But alongside this came an insidious feeling, an urge she couldn't shake. The chime wasn't just sound anymore, it was a presence, calling her. She felt it vibrating in her core, coaxing her to descend the cliffside, to enter the water, to join them. Clara's hands shook. She forced herself to remain rooted, though the longing clawed at her mind with relentless hunger. Her feet edged closer to the cliff, driven by compulsion. She bit her lip hard enough to taste copper, grounding herself in pain, until the chime faded and the figures dissolved into the sea. Clara stumbled back, her camera heavy in her trembling hands. She had captured something, but she knew that whatever secrets Gray Harbor held, they were far from done with her. Clara ascended the winding path to the lighthouse, its crooked silhouette rising against the gray sky. The keeper, an elderly man named Elias Croft, greeted her with suspicion in his faded, sea-worn eyes. His face was a map of wrinkles, etched by decades of salt air and sleepless nights. Elias ushered her into the lighthouse's cramped interior, the air thick with oil and mildew. He spoke in a strained whisper, as though the walls themselves might betray him. "The chime isn't ours," he began, his gnarled hands trembling slightly. "It's older than Gray Harbor, older than any map, any name. We don't summon it, it summons us." Clara leaned closer as Elias continued. "The drowned, they aren't gone. They work beneath the waves, building something. It's a gateway, a monument to call what waits below." His voice cracked, a tremor betraying the fear buried beneath his gruff exterior. "I've seen it in dreams, vast and terrible beyond words, and those who ask too much, those who seek too deeply, they never leave." Clara's heart raced, but her resolve hardened. "What is it calling?" she demanded, but Elias only shook his head, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon. "You don't want to know," he muttered. "You shouldn't want to know." As he spoke, a faint chime echoed through the lighthouse, impossibly soft, yet unmistakably present. Clara stiffened, her pulse quickening. It was daylight, yet the chime resonated through the air like a warning, its unnatural melody causing the shadows to stretch unnaturally long. "You hear it now," Elias said, his voice almost pitying. "It's already looking at you." He turned away, unwilling to say more, leaving Clara alone with the dreadful implications of his words and the growing vibration in her chest. At dusk, the sea mirrored the indigo sky, its surface rippling like liquid glass. Clara tightened the straps of her diving gear, the weight of the oxygen tank pressing into her back. Her resolve was a fragile shell, barely containing the dread clawing at her thoughts. But she had to know. The chime had become relentless, its impossible melody following her even into daylight hours. She would face it head on. She plunged into the water, the cold shocking her skin, even through the suit. The world above dissolved, replaced by a murky abyss that swallowed light. Armed with a camera and a faint hope of returning, she descended further, her flashlight cutting feeble arcs through the gloom. Then she saw it, the structure. Immense and alien, it sprawled beneath her like a cathedral built by hands that had never known the surface. Its stones pulsated faintly, as though alive, their surfaces carved with flowing symbols that glowed like dying embers. The drowned moved methodically around it, their barnacle-covered forms almost graceful. They passed enormous stones to one another in perfect synchronization, oblivious to her presence. A sound emerged from the structure, a deep, guttural vibration that seemed to emanate from its very core. It wasn't merely heard, it was felt, shaking her bones and rattling her thoughts. It was a voice, but not one meant for human ears. Clara's flashlight trembled in her hand as the chime began anew, stronger now, resonating within her. She tried to retreat, her instincts screaming to flee, but her body betrayed her. The vibration coursed through her veins, compelling her closer. Her limbs moved almost involuntarily, drawn toward the glowing symbols. She reached a hand forward, desperate to fight the compulsion, but the pull was undeniable, like gravity itself had shifted. Her camera captured the scene in fragmentary flashes, but Clara knew that if she went any closer, neither her footage nor she would ever surface again. Clara awoke sprawled on the rocky shore, the tide lapping against her ankles. Her diving gear was gone, as if the sea had claimed it in exchange for sparing her life. Her head throbbed, her memories fragmented and incomplete, broken pieces of something too vast to comprehend. She sat up slowly, the damp chill of the evening pressing into her skin. The people of Gray Harbor avoided her now. They passed her on the streets without acknowledgement, their faces pale, their eyes hollow. She saw in their expressions the same fear she now carried, the recognition that she had been touched by the chime. It was always with her now, even in silence, a faint resonance that hummed deep within her bones. She spent the night writing. Her final article was a desperate, feverish attempt to capture the horrors she had witnessed. She wrote of the drowned, of the structure beneath the waves, of the cursed pull that seemed to grip the town and everything around it. But as her words spilled onto the page, she realized they were meant for no audience. The truth of Gray Harbor would never leave. She could not leave. As dusk fell, the chime grew louder. Clara set down her pen and stepped outside, her movements calm, resigned. She walked past the abandoned homes, past the sagging docks, until she reached the shoreline. The sea stretched before her, black and infinite, the waves whispering their secrets in hushed tones. She didn't resist. The pull was too strong now, a part of her soul. The chime vibrated through her, guiding her steps into the water. The cold enveloped her, but she did not shiver. She waded deeper, her eyes fixed on the horizon, her mind strangely quiet. The drowned were waiting. As the waves closed over her head, she joined them, her movements synchronized, her purpose clear. Beneath the ocean, the structure loomed larger than she could have imagined, its glowing symbols pulsing in rhythm with the chime. It was nearly complete. And soon it would call what waited below. So tell me, dear listener, when the chime calls, will you resist, or will you walk willingly into the waves? Subscribe for more chilling tales, and hit the bell to stay in the dark. See you at the next quiet end.